Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, I am so pleased to be here in Kuching this morning talking about a topic that I am incredibly passionate about. And I'm also so pleased that the welcoming remarks, I think, are extremely aligned to what I was intending to talk about. The reason I'm so passionate about sustainability in action, sustainability in travel, is that I absolutely believe that travel can be a force for good. Travel and tourism can protect natural wild ecosystems. It can preserve cultural heritage, and as our previous speakers have already talked about, it can break down barriers between people. But we must also be realistic. It also can have negative consequences. It will have negative consequences. And not managed well, those consequences can be dire. Tourism as it was prior to the pandemic, BC, it could not be sustained without irreversible damage to planet and communities. So as an industry, we must focus on how we rebuild and on managing our impact, doing everything we can to mitigate the negative impacts of tourism and focus wherever we can on making those impacts positive. For those of you not familiar with Intrepid, a little bit of background, and I'll be giving you a few examples this morning of some of the things that we have done and some of the things that we have learnt. While we were founded in Australia, our operational story actually started in Asia. In our first year of operations, we brought 47 travellers to Thailand. In the following couple of years, we expanded to Indonesia and Malaysia and started carrying a couple of thousand customers. Now, 34 years later, our small group adventures include over 1,000 different itineraries in 112 countries on all 7 continents, and we carry hundreds of thousands of customers. But when Intrepid was founded, our founders really wanted to do some things differently. They wanted to not only provide exceptional and immersive experiences for customers to really understand destinations and their people, but they wanted to do so responsibly. They wanted to give back to destinations and to communities that were so integral to the business that we were running. As a result, we were the first travel company to set up what was called a responsible travel team. And that team, this is going back to the early 90s, that team was responsible for looking at our impact, trying to drive positive impact through our tours, and looking at the negative impacts. How could we learn from them? How could we do things better to offset those negative sides of tourism? Intrepid is also the world's largest travel B Corp. For those of you who don't know what a B Corp is, it stands for Benefits Corporation. And it means that as a business, we are committed to providing benefit not just to our shareholders, but to all stakeholders. Our staff, our customers, and importantly our community, which includes the communities in the countries we travel through and our vast supply chain. Looking at how we do things sustainably, for us it's about balancing purpose and profit. We are still a for-profit business, don't get me wrong, we want to make money. But what we have found is that doing the right and responsible thing has been good for business. Over the last 8 years, the more money we have invested into purpose-led activities and into sustainable initiatives, the more our top line and our bottom line have also grown. Our customers expect this of us, and pleasingly, we're seeing more customers, more travellers around the world are now expecting tour operators, activity providers to be looking at those impacts and taking care of them. But when I talk about purpose or sustainability, what does it mean? I was at a conference last week and I was pleased to see lots of the speakers starting to use the word sustainability. But in one case, a question was asked, what do you mean by sustainability? And all the speaker could say was, oh, we do a lot more walking in nature. Environment is absolutely part of it, but sustainability is broad. It is everything from reducing our waste and looking after the environment, but it also spans preservation of cultural heritage and social issues such as human rights. What are the benefits we offer to the staff? What are the impacts communities gain from being involved in tourism? If you're just working in one small area, you're not doing sustainability. It has to be broad. But the other thing I have absolutely seen during my time at Intrepid, sustainability is a journey. It's not something you do once, say, okay, I've done that, and move on. It is constantly evolving, and our knowledge is constantly evolving. As we know more, we can do things differently, we can do things better. So we must continue to learn, continue to evolve, and pivot what we do to continue getting better. For me, sustainability, it's really an end target. It's a goal that we're forever chasing, but we need to focus on that to continue doing things better. I'll give you an example. When I started with Intrepid in Vietnam in 2005, a common activity on a lot of our tours was taking customers to visit orphanages. I look back now and think, perhaps we didn't know any better. Or perhaps we just didn't think about it. But it wasn't just us, it was common in the industry. In Vietnam, Cambodia and other parts of Asia and Africa, it was a common inclusion. What we didn't realise was, what we didn't think about was that impact on those children that had busloads of tourists coming in every day, looking at them, photographing them, cuddling them and walking away. What was the impact on those individual children? But worse, it has since been documented that what those activities were creating was a marketplace. And there were parents giving up children for money because the tourism industry created a market and a need for orphans for tourists to come and visit. It's unimaginable today. But I remember when we went through and we put out our child protection guidelines, we wondered, would our customers walk away from us and go to another operator who was still offering that activity? We asked ourselves the same question a few years later when we introduced our animal welfare guidelines. And we went through all of our tours and activities and we took away those activities we had now learned were exploiting animals and keeping them in inhumane circumstances. We wondered, would our customers walk away from us and go to other operators that still offered activities that they thought were good to do? But what we learnt was we also have a role to educate our customer in talking to them about why we chose to eliminate these activities. They didn't walk away from us. They applauded us. They expect us to do the right and responsible thing. We realise that the right and responsible thing aligns with our brand and our customers like it and it's good for our business. One of the other examples that I've been particularly proud about is the work we've done in gender empowerment. Research shows that educating girls and giving women access to employment is not just good for those women and girls, it's good for society. It is pivotal for sustainable development. The UN is giving us data that says there are many more girls in primary education now than there were 15 years ago. And that is a really good step. However, access to employment for women is still not equal. 1 in 10 people globally are employed in travel and tourism. It's a fantastic number. 54% of people employed in travel and tourism are women, compared to only 39% in the broader economy. That is a really good measure for tourism. But women still earn 14% less than men on average in tourism. It's less than the wider economy, but there is still a gap. So we still need to make our industry accessible for women. So at Intrepid, we looked at our own business, as we do, and realised that in our offices, it was pretty even, 50-50. But in some areas, in some management positions, women were definitely underrepresented. And out on the road, they were very underrepresented, particularly in some countries. We realised that our guides and our tour leaders, in some there were very few, in some cases no, female leaders. And it wasn't because women didn't want to do these jobs, they did. They just didn't feel they had access to the role, they weren't encouraged, they couldn't see role models. In some cases they worried about their safety. So we really knew we had to do something different. We started in Cambodia and then went to India. When we were recruiting for leaders, we changed our ads to say we encourage both men and women to apply. In India, we even went to advertising in very non-traditional environments. We put up ads in hair salons and beauty salons, places where women might congregate, and asked them to give us a call if they had even the slightest interest. So we spent a lot more time with these women, talking to them about the role, encouraging them, and in some cases talking to their families about how we would provide an environment that would ensure the safety of their young women coming into the industry. We set targets that we wanted to achieve. We gave ourselves a 4-year time frame to significantly increase the numbers of women in guiding and leading positions. We smashed that goal in 2 years. And we have continued to focus around the world. The image behind me shows one of our female porters in Nepal. We have run the first trekking trips in Nepal with an all-female crew. Porters, guides, leaders. Rabina, who's one of our porters in Nepal, says, when I'm out on the track and men see me carrying the heavy bags and showing leadership, they start to think differently and it makes me proud. She wants to be an intrepid leader one day, but for now she loves being a role model that allows other women who want to work in the mountains see there's an opportunity for them. Community-based tourism has already been touched on this morning, and it's a really important element of our Intrepid trips. Often at conferences I'll hear people get up and talk about, oh, it's so hard to set up a community-based tourism activity. That's the easy bit. Maintaining it sustainably, that's hard. So often when we've worked with a new, or seen other operators working with a new community, at the start it's all really good. They want to welcome in new customers, they want to benefit from the income generated, and the customers have a wonderful engaging time. Without proper management, numbers can escalate. The community can be overwhelmed. The customers might know culturally how to behave properly if that's not explained to them. It can start to degrade the community. The community can give up other forms of income generation and just focus on tourists and driving more and more and more. If it's not sustainable, over time the tourists will realise that. It will no longer be engaging and they'll move away, leaving that community reliant on an income that's no longer coming. And the tourists will move to the next community. We must consider the long-term impacts. We must set up a plan that's sustainable before we go into these communities. We cannot leave it until the time that things are starting to go wrong. It's too late. We must think and plan in advance. Another way this year Intrepid is trying to create a positive impact is better leveraging our philanthropic arm, the Intrepid Foundation. We have just introduced over 20 new non-governmental, not-for-profit partners around the world. They're usually very local partners who are making some kind of impact on a local issue. What we are doing is integrating that into every one of our tours. So on every one of our tours, our customers will hear the story of one of these partners. Hear why it's an issue, hear what they're doing to alleviate it. As a business, we'll be donating from our company's profits to those partners on behalf of our customers, but we're also hoping to engage the customer that they might also become a supporter. In Asia, we've had over 6 new partners. In Sri Lanka, we've got a new partner called Zero Plastics who are focusing on the tourist areas and working with local communities to help reduce the pollution of the plastics in the first place, but also to collect them and to create a circular economy where they're recycled and go into creating other things. So we're hoping in a couple of years' time our Sri Lankan tour leaders will all be wearing uniforms made from recycled plastics. Here in Malaysia, our Malaysian team in Kota Kinabalu found an organisation called Respect that is working to rewild habitat for the Borneo elephant. Telling these stories on our trips shows our customers how they can create a positive impact through the joy of travel. My time is almost at an end, and I haven't touched on the biggest issue that is facing us today. It is facing us today. Climate change is here, it is real. Monday and Tuesday this week, I was at our regional operations conference in Bali, and we had the team who deal with crises talking about what they're dealing with. We now deal with, in a month, what we used to deal with in a year. Hurricanes, typhoons, floods, fires, earthquakes. It's already disrupting our business. There's a lot of talk now. The last couple of years we've had lots of talk about climate change. At Intrepid we started talking about climate change in 2006. We probably hadn't really heard it was a thing in 2006, but our chair had read about it and he wanted us all to read about it and start learning. But again, on this journey, what was best practice 10, 15 years ago is not good enough anymore. Intrepid became the first travel company that offset all emissions from our offices and our trips in 2010. That's not good enough anymore. Offsetting can be used for that residual amount, but what we need to do is rapidly decarbonise. Take the waste out of everything we do. Take the carbon out of everything we do. And it's not one action. Again, it's many, many small actions that will build up to give us the action that we need to take. For our offices, it can be as simple as turning off lights, turning off electricity when things aren't in use, not using the air conditioning, changing to renewable energy if it's available. On our trips, it's really looking at where are the major emissions coming from, and we know transport is a big part of it. So in the last couple of years, we've audited our top 50 selling trips and identified every flight of 90 minutes or less. And for every one of those flights, our teams were tasked with finding an alternative. We couldn't eliminate them all, but we could eliminate many of them. In terms of our other transport, we're looking at, can we find lower emitting forms of transport like trains or electric vehicles? In Sri Lanka last year, we ran what we believe is the first ever fully electric vehicle tour in the country. And now all of our airport transfers in Sri Lanka and Nepal are all done by electric vehicles. But we need to be constantly searching and looking to do more. A big focus for us now is working with our supply chain. As a global tour operator, we have tens of thousands of organisations and individuals in that supply chain. Many of them are already doing good things and we want to find out what they are. And where they don't know where to start, we want to help them start on their decarbonisation journey, because it's what we all must do to make the change that's needed. When it comes to sustainability and climate change in particular, it is no longer the time for us to compete. We need to collaborate across the industry. And during the pandemic, when we weren't offering tours, our team were talking to anybody who wanted to listen, even to competitors. We were talking to them about how to get on the decarbonisation journey to help our future. As I mentioned earlier, 1 in 10 people globally are employed in this industry. That's a huge opportunity. It's also a huge responsibility. But if we can educate everybody and get them on this journey, one small step at a time, to do things more responsibly, to try and negate the negative impacts of tourism, to try and push tourism so that the impact it makes is positive, not negative, We have to be realistic. There will still be negative impacts, but we need to act on them, learn, and do better. At Intrepid, we now talk about not being the best travel company in the world, but being the best travel company for the world. Please come and join us, because now more than ever, the world needs Intrepid people. Thank you.